Thanks for watching the Daily Debate live Wednesday with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight is really special where we are celebrating a country with natural beauty. Natural beauty is really abundant. It's a country gifted with the pristine beaches, the exotic water, the gorgeous landscapes, also the amazing landforms, the serene islands, and the vibrant tribes and cultural edifices. It's a country offering a mix of the outlandish island wonders and also the spine-chilling adventures. The land of national parks for the wildlife lovers and active volcano sites for the adventurous souls and those who love to explore. For explorers, ranging from wild and extravagant adventures to the beautiful sights, Indonesia is one of the world's most beautiful places ever. Tonight we'll be knowing more about the traditions of Ramadan in Indonesia, that incredible country that is known for its rich culture, for its history, how to visit Indonesia during the holy month of Ramadan and enjoy actually time during that holy month, and the deep cultures, going deep into the strong cultures of Indonesia, knowing more about how they celebrate the many traditions during the holy month of Ramadan. Along with our distinctive guest, my guest of honor tonight, I have all the honor and pleasure of having with us His Excellency Ambassador Lutfi Rauf, Ambassador of Indonesia to Egypt. Your Excellency, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much for coming, Ambassador. And happy Ramadan to you and to all the beloved ones, whether in Egypt or back in Indonesia.
I would also like to take this opportunity to greet our brother and sister here. Happy Ramadan, Ramadan Kareem. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to showering us with His blessing, so that we will have this Ramadan with a lot of good things for everyone.
Indeed. Well, we're celebrating today Indonesia and the holy month of Ramadan. As you know, Indonesia is the country with the largest Muslim population. How Indonesians are welcoming Ramadan in more calm, merry, as well as cheerful atmosphere that is apparent throughout the country, especially during the holy month. But first, let's check our top stories of the day. His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi directed on Wednesday to continue efforts aiming at building the capabilities of imams in order to deal with pressing contemporary issues and in line with the true teachings of Islam. This came in the President's meeting with the Awqaf Minister Muhammad Mukhtar Goma. In the meeting, the Minister had reviewed the latest developments concerning training the new imams. President Sisi directed to select the best imams and prepare them well before traveling on preaching missions abroad during the holy month of Ramadan, within Egypt's leading role in the da'wah field. The President also reviewed with the Awqaf Minister the efforts preparing for the international conference that focuses on using modern technology in religious discourse within the state's digital transformation efforts in all domains. Well, as we have just mentioned, that we are celebrating Indonesia today and the beautiful traditions during the holy month of Ramadan. Ramadan is celebrated in Indonesia, Ambassador, with special traditions that I guess are actually overwhelming throughout the world.
So thank you once again for having us. It is a great opportunity to share the information about the tradition of Ramadan in Indonesia. As you know well, Indonesia has the largest Muslim population, I think. 87% out of 270 million are Muslim, consisting of different cultures, ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of traditions, diversity in tradition in Indonesia also gave a kind of unique things to the Ramadan, in a way to celebrating Ramadan. So to speak, Ramadan is, I think, one of the most special month in Indonesian people, where we are doing a lot of celebration on it. Even before Ramadan, people already very excited to welcome this Ramadan with a different way of celebrating through different cultures, from east to west, from western part of Indonesia to the east, with the many way of expressing their happiness in welcoming Ramadan.
Yes, definitely special traditions, Ambassador, main traditional rituals, cultural practices during the holy month of Ramadan make Ramadan in Indonesia very special. So tell us more about the main traditional rituals during Ramadan.
So first of all, I think even before Ramadan, there is already a kind of traditions that we practice. For instance, we visiting each other's families, and then to seek probably, apology or for our past mistakes, so that we will enter Ramadan with the kind of purity. And also, of course, we start also to sharing food before that. And many other traditions in different parts of Indonesia where people have a kind of traditional way of purifying itself, like, for instance, taking a bath and then so on and so forth. And in addition to that, when we start to have this Ramadan, you know, we can see all over Indonesia, all the mosques are full, because we start to perform what we call Taraweh.
The Salat Taraweh.
Salat Taraweh, where, you know, people really coming, welcoming this to do their praying. And then another one's very interesting, I think, more or less similar to the tradition in Egypt, what we call it Masaharati. You know, where Masaharati, where the kids, the young people coming around the village, the waking up.
Masaharati is the guy who just moves around with his drums in order to wake people up,
and
then they would prepare for their suhoor.
Yes, they're shouting, they call it in Indonesia, sahur, 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 you know, this is this kind of thing. Another one, during the time of Ramadan, of course, people, really use their time to contemplate, reading Quran, of course, doing worship, a kind of salah, as much as possible, because they believe Ramadan is, a special month of Ramadan where the blessing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the goodness or every ibadah will be awarded in many the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the times in the afternoon approaching the breakfast, breakfasting of Ramadan, there is also tradition in Indonesia where people going out, we call it ngabuburit, looking for the food somewhere, and then the community also open a kind of food stalls everywhere, especially those from small, medium, enterprises, where they have opportunity to sell their good foods and so on and so forth. And during this time of what we call matfa iftar.
The whistle.
Yes. Also, there is a tradition I discovered here. I also observe similarities, where we share food. What we call it also Maidatul Rahman, where the people passing by our place or house or mosque stop over and sharing the foods. This is tradition, I think, that reflecting that actually Islam is a religion of caring and sharing.
Caring and sharing and generosity, definitely.
Yes. So this is also the peoples, especially those who have a good fortune. We call it a lot of rizki, where they can share. Starting to also, especially to the orphans, to the needy peoples. I think more or less similar to if I travel around where, those people who has a lot of fortunes, they can share, in neighborhood and wherever we go.
The same like here in Egypt.
Yes, that's what
is happening.
This is, I think, the values that I think both our people in Egypt and also our people, Muslim Indonesia, has this kind of traditions.
Yes.
And we are very grateful to see this kind of things.
Yes, great resemblance between both countries. And the holy month of Ramadan, as you've mentioned, Excellency, is the month of blessings, lots of sharing and giving. One day of Ramadan in Indonesia is always special. Tell me about, Your Excellency, the layman in the street, the ordinary people. How do they spend Ramadan? Let me see if we are going to share with you since the start after the azan, after Al-Fajr. How did the day go? How would they spend a day in Ramadan?
You know, because this is a tradition. We live with this kind of tradition for, since the Islam came.
Yeah.
So apparently, just the beginning of the month, sometimes we need a kind of adjustment, like, working hours, starting a little bit late and then going home a little bit earlier.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that it prevents us to do some works. So we continue to have this work. So during this time, as I mentioned before, people tend to be more focusing on ibadah, doing ibadah as much as possible, because they believe this is the month of reward by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in many ways, both the compulsory ibadah or non-compulsory one, as I mentioned before, this is the time for us to look after each other. It is therefore also our people coming out, reaching out the peoples in terms of our community, because we know also in the certain place there is a difficult situation where our people also experiencing. This is where we come over to also to do to share.
Yes.
In terms of our ibadah, people's trying to also to read Quran, even during this time. For instance, I myself, because of the times sometimes busy, at least we have a time to spare for reading Quran 1 or 2 pages a day.
Great.
And then we try to finish up by the end of Ramadan. So this is activities that probably we don't do normally outside Ramadan. But during Ramadan, that's what we do. Another one, of course, as I mentioned before, we do Taraweh, Salah Taraweh, and even continue with many people stay late because, again, continue to do Quran recital and many other things we do. Another important thing that for us during Ramadan, we try to have the best or unique foods that probably we could not have or we didn't find during outside Ramadan.
Yes.
This is a kind of specialities.
Yes.
In many places, starting from west part of Indonesia to the central part in Indonesia, different way, different kind of foods they serve, especially during Ramadan.
Yes, definitely. We do have also the same story here in Egypt with special desserts also served during the holy month of Ramadan, like the atayef or the kunafa, and that stuff is really delicious, and it's always served during the holy month of Ramadan. When it comes to costumes, Ramadan costumes are really special. We here in Egypt would like to enjoy Ramadan vibes while wearing what we call the abaya or the jalabiya in a way or another. So it's usually the time of the year or the season where we do wear special costumes to celebrate Ramadan or for visiting friends to take with them iftar or for suhoor. Is it the same story in Indonesia?
More or less similar, actually. I mean, as I mentioned, Indonesia is so diverse. They have their own, costume and so on and so forth. But being the majority population of Indonesia are Muslim, they wear a Muslim costumes. But in Indonesia, there are typical. They wear what we call a songkok or kopiah, more or less similar here with the head, and also we call it also here. You call it jalabia, but in Indonesia there is a kind of also costumes that we call long dress one.
Yes.
And then of course we wear also sarung. This is very unique in Indonesia because it's reflecting the respective ethnicity and cultures, a way of dress in Indonesia. They're reflecting also in Ramadan, in the Islamic way.
Yes.
So this is, I think, another one very unique in Indonesia, especially during the night when the people going to perform a tarawih in the mosque, especially the ladies and women, that they wear the best possible, outfit to go to the mosque. In the past, sometimes we just have two colors, black on white, the hijab or whatever. But now there's also very colorful. This is, I think, reflecting also the modern way in expressing, themselves in enjoying Ramadan during this time.
Yes.
So it's very interesting actually in Indonesia.
Yeah.
As like what we have seen here in Egypt also.
Yes, definitely. Ramadan is really the month of blessings, the month of giving, and Ramadan vibes are enjoyed worldwide. In Indonesia, Ramadan is really special, where our Indonesian brothers and sisters welcome the holy month. And as His Excellency has mentioned, special costumes, special dishes as well. Let's see how Indonesians celebrate Ramadan together, and we'll be back.
Muslims in Indonesia welcome the holy month of Ramadan with various traditions, ceremonies and joy, and is always eagerly awaited. This can be seen from the different rituals and customs welcoming the fasting month. These traditions have been practiced for long, and each tradition has its own meanings, and are heavily influenced by the culture and norms of the respective areas from where they originate. From colorful torchlight street parades to cleaning houses and sharing meals with family and friends, every region in the vast Southeast Asian country seems to have its own way to mark the start of Ramadan, highlighting the nation's diverse cultural heritage. This habit of gathering in front of the mosque to welcome Ramadan has become a tradition. Some vendors also come and sell traditional, ready-to-eat foods. The market-like activities lasted from dawn until around midday. The people would usually move to the east side of the road in front of the mosque, and the activities continued, lasting from the afternoon until dawn of the next day. People in Indonesia's deeply conservative province celebrate the beginning of Ramadan with festivities by slaughtering animals such as oxen and buffalo, as well as smaller animals like chicken and ducks. The meat is then cooked and shared with family, friends, and even the poor and orphans in a communal feast that aims to bring the community together. In Indonesia, Ramadan is celebrated with other many traditions. One of them is buka bersama, or breaking the fast together. It can be done with family, co-workers, or former schoolmates. Among other traditions associated with Ramadan in Indonesia is the bazaar, which is organized by various civic, charitable, and neighborhood organizations, where goods are sold at discounted prices to help the poor celebrate Ramadan and the holidays with new clothing and special foods. After evening prayers, many boys and girls across Jakarta parade through the streets of the densely populated neighborhoods to welcome the holy month. They carry torches and play Islamic songs accompanied by the beat of the rebana, the Arabic handheld percussion instrument. Indonesia is a vast country, blessed with thousands of islands, diverse ethnic groups, each having their special mother tongues, and variety of cultures, religions and beliefs, with Islam being the religion the majority of the people profess.
We're still on the daily debate, and we are enjoying the vibes of Ramadan, both in Egypt and also in Indonesia. And my guest of honor is His Excellency Ambassador Lutfi Rauf, Ambassador of Indonesia to Egypt. We were talking, Excellency, about the special dishes also that are celebrated in Indonesia, during which the families would exchange, as we've seen in the report, very special traditions and cultural heritage celebrating Ramadan.
So as I mentioned before, there is many kind of foods coming out during Ramadan, which is rarely found during outside Ramadan. So there are a lot of kind of foods in Indonesia. Knowing the diversity of the country is so huge, this is also reflecting during the time of Ramadan. Like in Egypt also, you have a lot of kind of foods. I know very well, and I enjoy very much about this time. I mean, you have a kosari, hamam, and then of course bisinjani, and other like you know, kaware, this kind of things. Yeah. Like in Indonesia.
Ali for desserts.
Yes, and also kunafa,
yeah.
Taib, that's something that
in
you
Ramadan,
know,
special kunafa, of course.
Yes, yeah. This is also, you know, the tradition that we have in Indonesia. If you see on the screen before this, in Aceh, for instance, where people sacrifice, you know, buffalo and then sharing the meat to the neighborhood, and many others kind of food. But there's also similarities here, and it become also more popular in Indonesia when we start breaking our fasting or iftar. We tend to drink water and at least 3 pieces of dates.
Yes.
And then before coming to the sweet things, and then after that have a break, performing Salah or Maghrib, and after that going back to the main course, where we have everything, curry, soup and curry, fish. For the western part of Indonesia, we find the food is more spicy because the influence from the Middle East and also India, and especially in the island Sumatra. In Java, of course, there's a lot of kinds of foods also, you know, chicken satais and many kind of foods, and sweet, of course. And further down to the east, where we found mostly the food is consisting of seafood, because plenty of seafood from east.
From Asia, yeah.
And one of particular and special, how to call it, drink, when we start to break our fasting, that is what we call young coconut, where people, you know, make a kind of drinks, mixed with a different kind of spicy, even, you know, brown sugars, limes, and so on and so forth. You know, the coconut is very famous because grow everywhere in Indonesia. This is also, you know, bring a kind of more energy after we have a long fasting day of Ramadan, and then a kind of restoring back our energy with the iron that's contained in the coconut waters. So to speak, a lot of kind of foods in Indonesia, starting from my sweet, you know, spicy one, and so on and so forth. It depends on where you are in Indonesia. So this is reflecting the diversity of Indonesia through foods. And then, as I mentioned before, even during before Ramadan, we hardly find it, but during Ramadan, everything's unique things coming out.
Yes, definitely. Those are very special days while we are celebrating the holy month of Ramadan. As His Excellency has emphasized, special traditions, costumes, special Ramadan dishes also, and desserts in Indonesia. Like here in Egypt, we have also the families are socializing during the holy month of Ramadan. And actually, it's a great opportunity, Ambassador, because rarely do sometimes families eat together in the ordinary days. However, during the holy month of Ramadan, they are always there together for the iftar on the same table and for suhoor. So socializing in Ramadan is very special.
This is another element in the values of Ramadan in terms of social context, in family-wise and so on and so forth. outside Ramadan, sometimes, you know, kids have their own meals, father have their own meals because of their different activities. But during Ramadan, where people assemble around, excuse me, around the dining tables to enjoy the food, sharing the story and so on and so forth, which is probably is very rarely experienced outside Ramadan.
Yes.
And likewise during the, how to call it, the Masyarati, you know, where people, you know, wake up and
So
then come
sahur.
to the, and have sahur and have a chat or talk sometimes.
Yes.
So this,
it unites families. It
Yes.
brings this bond back. Yeah.
this is, I said, the values that the Ramadan revive and refresh us.
Yes.
After we have different activities outside Ramadan, now there is a special time for us to sit down together, enjoy the company, enjoy the good foods. As I mentioned before, so many foods, special foods coming in during Ramadan. That's where, you know, we enjoy together during this time.
Yes, definitely. From Indonesia, we're going to be back to Indonesia, but back here to Egypt, and Ramadan in Egypt, as the song would say it, like Ramadan في مصر حاجة تانية. Ramadan in Egypt is really a special month with all its vibes, positive vibes, Ambassador. Definitely experiencing Ramadan in Egypt became also so special to you.
It is true, absolutely true. To be honest, you know, this is exciting moment for me. That's the first time, if I might say, to experience full-fledged of Ramadan. Why? Because the previous two Ramadans, I've been here over 2 years. This is the third Ramadan for me. But the previous, we hardly do or did things during Ramadan because a lot of limitations because of COVID. There is a kind of containment here and there. We cannot socializing with our people, with our friends, as much as we wish to.
Yes.
But this time, when we are entering Ramadan, there is a kind of exciting feeling, excitement, that really we want to enjoy, especially myself, the first time, to enjoy this kind of Ramadan in Egypt. So, for instance, during this time, we feel more comfortable, more relaxed, less stressful, in carrying out the many things about Ramadan, including socializing with people. For instance, in my case, the first time of the first day of Ramadan, we start to have a kind of prayers together in my embassy, where we invite my colleagues, at least within the limited numbers of peoples, my staff, and then so on. So the first time I have this one, and then also. During the days of Ramadan, our community also, in many places, including students, very active in participating in many activities. For instance, I saw on media also our student in Al-Azhar volunteering, going to the mosque and then helping hand in distributing foods during this time.
Yes.
So which is, I mean, during my stay here, I haven't seen that before. Because the mosque is relatively restricted, but now it's fully open. Thanks God, of course.
Of course.
This is the time really to enjoy.
After COVID.
After COVID,
yes.
And then, for instance, before previous Ramadan, last year I went to the mosque only one time, the end of the day of Ramadan, during dawn, because less people coming to the mosque at that times. This year, even I start to go to the mosque, praying Asar, Zuhur,
yes.
Because we feel that if we perform our praying on the mosque, it gives us more kind of energy and a blessing from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and a reward, of course.
Of course.
This is something that, I personally didn't feel in the previous two Ramadans
because of the COVID.
Yes, but this time, I'm very excited to prepare, and I ask my colleagues also to go out, mingling among our brothers and sisters in Egypt, and for instance, even participating in Maidatul Rahman.
Yes, so, that's great. That's great. So enjoying Ramadan vibes, as His Excellency has mentioned. In Egypt, Ramadan is very special, reuniting families together on one table for iftar and for suhoor. The decoration that the kids definitely share together also to celebrate the holy month, the fawanis all around, also celebrating the advent of the holy month of Ramadan. This in addition, of course, to the special Egyptian dishes and desserts and more. Let's have a short break and we'll be back. Thank God this year has been more special because he had the opportunity of celebrating Ramadan with all the loved ones here in Egypt without the restrictions of COVID-19. God bless Egypt and God bless Indonesia. Your Excellency, talking about Indonesia and that beautiful country, the tourism potential of Indonesia is really huge.
Yes.
So we would like to adopt here on Nile TV International more concerning promos, exploring and discovering more about the beauty of Indonesia. What would you tell us?
So before we move on that, we just seen the very nice, features, clips. I just want to mention also, in a way of us celebrating Ramadan in Egypt, according to the tradition, in embassy, I put a lot of fanus also back on my office and my residence.
Nice.
Fanus is very nice lanterns decorated, yes.
Yeah.
So coming back to the tourism sectors, I always say that Indonesia and Egypt is two great countries with a large population of Muslim, of course. Indonesia, 87% of 270 million are Muslim. Here, Egypt, I think the population now, reaching almost 110 millions. So if we're talking about tourism, there is many aspects of tourism that our two countries have similarities. Especially during this time of Ramadan, apparently didn't stop our people to do or to enjoy, visiting other countries.
Yes.
This is related to what we call religious tourism. And we know very well, Egypt is the place and offering a lot of unique place in many kind of history. This is, I think, the mother of civilizations. And then coming to the traditions and the history of Islam here, where we can see and enjoy. This is happening now recently after the COVID restrictions has been lifted. I saw many Indonesians started to come over here. They went through to Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah first, and then continue their trip and journey for tourist purposes, visiting Egypt, visiting the historic places that related to the tradition of Islam, where we can find a lot of, structures, buildings, and so on and so forth, and many other mosques. There's also, happened to me today, since I know that the mosque of Amr bin As reopen after renovation. I visited and do praying. I saw a lot of also tourism.
And we have
there.
Also Masjid Masr.
Yes,
the new
in the new
administrative
territory.
Capital,
I have opportunity also honor to be there during the beginning of Ramadan when His Excellency President Sisi is attended with other dignitaries. This is a great mosque. We call it in Indonesia Masjid Raya. That is a grand mosque. Masjid Mesir in Indonesia we call it. This is, I believe one day is another destinations for the people to visit.
Yes.
Not only to do worship or praying there, but this is related to the religious, spiritual tourism.
Yeah.
And then the potential are there. What we need to do, I think, is to do more works and promotions. How to increase the numbers of exchange of visit between our two peoples from our two different, our respective countries, from Egypt to Indonesia, Indonesia to Egypt. We are very encouraging from the facts and the figures that we've seen. During COVID, we rarely seen the visitors to visit our respective country because of restrictions.
Yes.
But since the opening, I think the mid of 2022, where the restriction is relatively relaxed, the growing number of fish in the boatways going up.
Great news.
Going up. But there's still a lot of rooms for us to improve. That's what I say. We need to have more promotions to bring to our people attention that, look, Egypt and Indonesia offer a great opportunity for spiritual tourism.
Yes.
And this is also related to our joint efforts to increase and to develop further what we call halal tourism, in accordance with the Islamic values. Because now not only the Islamic peoples like this one, because it become lifestyles. That's why if we're talking about halal industry, it's growing up in the world.
Yes.
So this is, I think, one of the areas that we can develop, we can work together. And I want to emphasize particularly the role of the media, like this TV, Nile's TV,
Nile TV,
in bring this, attention and awareness to our people will help a lot, I think, in the times ahead. That's what my belief.
Definitely will be working, Ambassador, on exploring and discovering more about Indonesia's beauty and culture and traditions here on Nile TV International with great honor and pride, and also because we here Egyptians know certain areas and certain tourist destinations. For instance, Bali is very much well known to Egyptians. Also for honeymooners, it is very much famous. And lots and lots of islands in Indonesia are considered to be unique tourist attractions, definitely. If we talk, Excellency, about the common similarities Ramadan-wise between both countries, Egypt and Indonesia, what would you tell?
I already mentioned this, we have a lot of similarities because the traditions, many of them are similar. I can explain at least from my personal perspective. Why? Because the cultural context between our people has been happening many centuries back, where we have a lot of students coming back even during 18th centuries. When they're going back to Indonesia, they bring these traditions and also knowledge about Egypt, especially those who study in Al-Azhar going back to Indonesia. These kind of values return back to. That's why we find the similarities. The name of our Indonesian, many similar name with the the name here in Egypt. Even myself, many people say this. Your name is sound like Egyptian names. Lutfi, Rauf. Tantawi,
exactly.
Vausi, this kind of name is commonly found in Indonesia. So, if you ask him the similarities, it can be explained because of the closeness of the culture and history of the two countries, despite the fact geographically we are far away. But in terms of cultures, we always feel close. So, I cannot say much about this one because this is the fact that we can see reflected to, if you're traveling to Indonesia, likewise if you come here to Egypt, our people living in a very comfortable, like if they are living in their own home.
Yes.
And that's why we're always grateful to the people and government of Egypt for always open up their window and door, welcoming our peoples. Now, just in addition to that, we have now around 12,000 Indonesian students here and a growing number
studying at Al-Azhar.
Al-Azhar also, and some others in other universities, but mostly in Al-Azhar. This is, I think, a kind of I call it ambassador of Egypt when they return to Indonesia, because they're the one who has this kind of feeling and experience of living in this country so many years. They bring with them the traditions. They were living here, during their stay, and then go back to Indonesia.
Yes, definitely. It's increasing the sense of bond and friendship and partnership between our friendly nations. Indonesian traditions and Egyptian traditions also on a night that is worth 1,000 nights on celebrating of Laylat al-Qadr that we are going to witness during the holy month of Ramadan. Laylat al-Qadr is very special because Allah Almighty bestows His blessings upon the righteous at that night, and Actually, this special night, or the night of the decree, is celebrated also specially in Indonesia.
Yes, definitely yes. Even there is a kind of extra excitement.
Yeah.
Whenever people, realize that the month of Ramadan is approaching to the end, where there is a belief that there is a special night during this probably second half or the third quarter of Ramadan, we'll have a special night that is we call Laylatul Qadr, where in the Quran is very clearly, explained.
And a night of rewards.
Yes, the night of rewards, even, even much better than thousand of nights, for instance. So this is where the people start probably to, to slow down a little bit psychologically. But when they realize that there is a few more nights left, that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might bring down what we call the night of Laylatul Qadr. This is where, people, even give more focus on that in a very deeper way in performing their
prayers.
Their prayer, worship
Yes.
to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is another particular event or time in Ramadan. This is what we call Nuzulul Quran, celebrating the time where Al-Quranul Karim descended from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet Muhammad during the early time of the, how to call it, the prophecy of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is also celebrated in Indonesia through different kind of festivals, a competition, Quran recital, starting from the village level to the national level. That's why we call it what we call MTQ, Musabaqah Tilawatil Quran, where we have a competition. This result of this competition, where we have the finest Quran, we call it Qari or Qari'ah, Quran
recitation, yeah.
Yes, and then going up to the international level.
Yeah.
And then Alhamdulillah, we won many awards also in the international level for this. This is, I think, one of the aspects that we always also celebrate during the time of Ramadan. Nuzulul Quran.
Yes. Well, great meanings and deep meanings. In a minute, Ambassador, we're wrapping up this beautiful episode, but let us also remember that God Almighty is rewarding us after fasting and praying and all those blessings in Ramadan with the Eid, the approach of the Eid, the big festival, where we all celebrate the advent of Eid al-Fitr. How is Eid al-Fitr in Indonesia?
Thank you for reminding me, because, this is one of the largest festivities in Indonesia, marking the end of Ramadan, where people's, exodus from one place to another one, in a very large and massive way. Millions of people traveling back to their hometown to celebrate with their family.
Yeah.
And of course, this is also the time where, our people's, Muslim and sisters, wearing the best dress they have, and then sharing the best food they have, sharing the wealth they have, because this is part of the obligation also. Besides zakah, there's also sadaqah and others, charity, especially those who have a well fortune for the needy one. This is, I think, where everybody enjoy the atmosphere of Eid al-Fitr. There's economic aspect for that, at least as far as my experience is concerned. This is also a kind of generating economy, moving from a concentrated, economic situation to the countryside.
Yes, well, it's celebrations all over, from the vibes of Ramadan to the vibes of Eid. Let me say, I thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Lutfi Rauf, my guest of honor tonight, Indonesia's ambassador to Egypt. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for coming and for celebrating with us the holy month of Ramadan and highlighting similarities and positive vibes between Egypt and Indonesia during Ramadan. Thank you, Ambassador.
I also take the opportunity to express our sincere gratitude for giving the opportunity to share at least, the information, the knowledge and experience about celebrating Ramadan, both in Indonesia and myself here in Egypt during this time. And of course, our best wishes that Ramadan Kareems will bring more blessing to us, and then inshallah, we will be how to call it, celebrating Eid al-Fitr in the days ahead. And then once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Ramadan Kareem.
Allahu Akram. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Dear viewers, that was the great customs and traditions of Indonesia during the holy month of Ramadan. Happy Ramadan to all of you, and we'll meet again tomorrow on the Daily Debate with another team. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Many thanks for watching.
Happy Ramadan.